Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Eyes of the Opposition series. Now, this is, of course, the show in which I get the perspective of an opposition fan, writer, journalist, personality, to give you guys the insight from the other side and see how they are feeling ahead of the tie that Arsenal are playing against them. And of course, this week is the first fixture of the 2019-20 Europa League. Starting with our group stage opponents, which arguably are the best team in our group, Frankfurt, which are a German side which know all too well about the Europa League, considering they got to the Europa League semi-finals last season. And I'm going to be speaking with Brian Sanders from the Hey Eintracht Frankfurt Podcast to give you guys all the information that you need about Frankfurt and, of course, a perspective from the other side too. If you are enjoying the series, though, please give it a like. Please subscribe if you're new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. And if you want to join in with some of our live shows, those notifications is really important as well, so you can get involved, get your question and voices heard, and ultimately enjoy yourself as well on the channel. So please sit back, relax and enjoy as we go through some of these questions for Brian and to see what he thinks ahead of the Gunners game in Germany. So we're going to start off with a very simple question regarding Frankfurt. Now, Arsenal and Frankfurt, there are some similarities, but the differences are very clear, and one of those differences was over the summer, where Arsenal definitely strengthened, but Frankfurt had to deal with the fact that they lost some very key players for them during the summer, and Brian's going to talk to you all about that now.
Eintracht Frankfurt selling off 100 million euros worth of players was a financial windfall that doesn't come around all too often for this sort of club, but definitely is one that needed to be taken since qualification to the Champions League was not made. Bas Dost has become the top striker that has been acquired from Sporting Lisbon, and he is going to be seen as the man who will pop up at the right moment at the right time, putting in the goals. Paciencia, already there, is another striking option that Eintracht have, who is now got a year under his belt. And Silva, who has been picked up in the swap deal for Rebic from AC Milan, is one who is currently integrating himself within the Eintracht Frankfurt side. We will see kind of where they stand, but a lot of continuity as a lot of players are back again after a strong European campaign, finishing the Europa League in semi-finals in 7th place in the Bundesliga itself.
Obviously, losing the likes of Ante Rebic, Haller and Jovic to some big sides across Europe is going to have an impact on any team. But the likes of Andre Silva, who had a really decent spell at Sevilla, it's fair to say, in La Liga, and has now moved on to the Bundesliga, I think is a very astute signing. Paciencia, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, very difficult one to pronounce. Is more of a guy that's been there already, as Brian says, and it's going to be interesting to see how he develops continually and if he gets the minutes needed. And then Bas Dost, who of course we played against last year against Sporting Lisbon, got Jose Miguel to talk about him when we interviewed him about that, and he's always going to be someone who's scoring across Europe, Bas Dost, and if he can continue that in Germany, well, great for the Frankfurt fans. But we move on to talk about something which is intriguing, because when you look at teams that when they go far in the Europa League, sometimes it can have either a detrimental effect, because we see them just crash out because of the amount of fatigue that goes on playing, the amount of games that it dictates, but there can be good impacts on the side in the long run. You look at Red Bull Salzburg and the run they had recently in the competition, which got them to the semi-finals, losing out to Marseille very unfortunately, who then lost to Atletico Madrid, who beat us in our semi-final respectively. But this season, Red Bull Salzburg are flying already in the Champions League with that amazing 6-2 win over Genk. So is there impact being seen already on the Frankfurt side that did so well in the Europa League last year?
Eintracht run to the Europa League semi-finals, losing out on penalties to the eventual champions Chelsea, is one that had many ups and downs. A lot of experience gained by the team, mostly due to the fact that the group stage was considered the hardest group of the season, when you had Olympique Marseille, a team from Cyprus, and Lazio. Three teams from the top 5 leagues in Europe made a very tough group that they ended up winning every single game in. Then they played Shakhtar Donetsk, then they played Inter Milan, and then they played Benfica, and last but not least, they played Chelsea. So a very much a gauntlet of teams to reach the semifinals, and a lot of the players are back on this team, and more players have been brought in to give the team a more quality of depth, not just depth for depth's sake. And the experience gained by the Eintracht playing on these big nights guess what? That's only going to transition into the new season, and already we have seen some progress within the Bundesliga season itself, and 3 rounds of qualifying for through the Europa League, including playing against a team from Ligue 1 in Racing Club Strasbourg. It's already paying up dividends, and with a much easier group than last season, Eintracht will be looking to utilize their experience and taking that perhaps next step forward.
Now, when I sent the questions to Brian, I was sort of in a state of mind where it was quite fresh off of the Watford game, and in fact that was clearly indicated in the question that I asked him, when I actually said that both Arsenal and Frankfurt are coming off the back of defeats, because I emotionally considered that Watford game a defeat, and it certainly felt like one. But Frankfurt did actually suffer a real one, 2-1 away at Augsburg, and I'm interested to know whether Brian thinks that they will see a reaction from both sides on Thursday.
Eintracht falling to FC Augsburg was nothing short of disappointing and yet not unexpected. Eintracht versus Augsburg has been for a while now the bogey team for the Eintracht. In the last couple of years, Eintracht's only picked up, I believe, just 4 points in the last 6 to 8 matches against Augsburg. Not a good return, needless to say, at all. But Eintracht was also doing a heavy dosage of rotation with the anticipation of putting out not only a side to compete in the Europa League, but also looking towards Sunday as they face off against Champions League participant and a team that expected to be playing for the Bundesliga title in Borussia Dortmund. So 2 big fixtures to kind of get some fresh legs in there. And so not looking too much into FC Augsburg's match. And even then, Eintracht looked a better side. They just happened to get killed off by one amazing goal of the week, even goal of the month sort of nomination for the second goal. And the first goal was just an excellent counterattack that ended up biting the Eintracht in the bum, despite the fact that they had a vast majority of possession and a vast majority of the shots in the match.
A result which was frustrating yet expected. The parallels between Frankfurt and Arsenal are already becoming very apparent here. But my next question asks basically about the specific game, because in the Europa League it's been an opportunity for Arsenal to play some of their younger, less experienced players. And until we see that lineup, of course, we don't know what approach Unai Emery is going to take this season in the Europa League. But many people do expect us to field a weaker side against the Germans. But Brian, I was intrigued to know what Brian thought about whether that will have an impact on the game and how he expects this to play out.
As an Eintracht fan, definitely look at the Europa League as an opportunity to always prove oneself against other opposition in other top echelon leagues, such as the Premier League with Arsenal FC. So despite the fact that Arsenal maybe not putting out their top end lineup, maybe focusing it more towards the Premier League, focusing on qualification to the Champions League or even the title itself via the Premier League instead of finishing in 5th or 6th, where you continuously get the Europa League competition. Eintracht sees in Arsenal a team that consistently, year in, year out, participates in Europe. And if they're not in the knockout phase of the Champions League, guess what? They're in the knockout phase of the Europa League. They are a team with thousands of fans and a grasp all over the world, and that is something that Eintracht will definitely relish playing it against at the Waldstadion in Frankfurt, the real name of the Commerzbank Arena.
Now, whilst we can try and think about what might happen in the game, who might play, there's only one real question this comes down to when these two meet at the Waldstadion, as its proper name should be, as Brian highlights, and that is a prediction of the scoreline. So, Brian, what do you think it's going to be?
Lastly, Eintracht versus Arsenal, the Waldstadion, for sponsorship reasons, the Commerzbank Arena. This is going to be a cauldron of noise for any Arsenal fan who is lucky enough to have a ticket to travel to Frankfurt. One, try out the Ippelwein. We call it Ippelboy. Trust me, you will very much thank me for that. An absolute great drink, especially considering the fact that as we're only about to enter fall, it has hints of enjoying a good summer's night. Eintracht will be up for this match, and it's going to be one that any supporting the stands will not likely to forget. Eintracht will be feeling their best team out there. I do think that it will end in a 1-1 draw. I do foresee Arsenal getting a goal via one of their many players with Bundesliga experience, and Eintracht also putting one in themselves to send the fans into absolute delirium.
See, not only do you get a prediction, but you get tips on what you should be drinking if you're lucky enough, as Brian says, to travel to the Waldstadion for Eintracht Frankfurt against Arsenal on Thursday. But that rounds off our quick preview in the Eyes of the Opposition show. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, please give it a like, please subscribe if you're new around here. And don't worry, because this is not the only prediction show or preview show that you are getting, because the brand new Quick Take show, which debuted last week against Watford, where we get the thoughts of all the regular podcast boys on the channel, is going to be back very, very soon after you see this on your subscription list. So make sure you've got those notifications on to know when that drops. But I'll see you again very, very soon, sooner than you think. And I'll see you again very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.